summer break, and you know what that means. Canoes, counselors, and cold-blooded murder. I'm Shawnee.
And I'm Ryan. We're heading back to 1983 for one of the most bizarre, unforgettable entries into the slasher canon, Sleepaway Camp. The kills are brutal, the acting is questionable, and the twist, jaw-dropping over 40 years later.
So grab your bug spray, avoid the curling irons, and join us by the lake if you dare. This is Slashback Cinema. Ryan, had you heard of this movie, Sleepaway Camp?
Honestly, no. I mean, maybe it was in the mix. I feel like there's 10,000 of these, Friday the 13th spin-off movies, and
Yeah.
yeah, but no. How about you?
I feel like I just vaguely was aware of it. I didn't remember the details. I don't think I ever saw it before. And the shocking surprises were still shocking to me, as we said in the intro. So yeah, I was totally thrown off by this movie. I am curious, do you have much experience with a sleepaway camp? Have you ever gone to a sleepaway camp?
We chatted about this a little bit for our Suspiria episode, which I did one sleepaway camp session. Maybe it was like an 82. I don't know. I was pretty young, but so it would have been right before this movie got filmed. And yeah, I was not a fan. Like I think I did like a week of it, and then it was sort of like this movie, Lord of the Flies, light touch supervision by adults, and I don't think there was as many murders during my session at camp. But how about you?
I never went to a sleepaway camp, but I did do like a day camp. I did that a couple times. And you're right. I do recall particularly if you're a little older, 13, 14, 15, not a lot of adult supervision. Or if there is supervision, the counselors are like 16. So the difference between the campers and the counselors, they seemed much older to us at the age of 13. But in fact, I think they were still in high school. All right, we got to talk about some of this stuff. And I got to tell you, some of it, I don't know if I'm comfortable talking about it. This movie was a lot. Let's do an overview.
Yeah, the movie opens up with a beautiful summer day, and there's a family boating out on the lake. It's a dad with his two small kids, and then there's these teenagers doing some water skiing. And there's this tragic boating accident where the dad and one of the children gets killed. And then they cut to the story of it's Angela and her protective cousin Ricky, who they're going to go off to this Camp Arawak for the summer.
God, it does seem relevant to say that, like, yeah, so the dad and the brother get killed in the beginning, you think, and then she's being raised by her aunt, is it?
Yeah, it's her aunt, who is, we'll talk about her in a little bit, I'm sure. Quite odd. Anyway, she gives them this whole big spiel about sending them off to camp, and away they go to this camp. And so it's your typical summer camp. They're doing the camper things, although right out of the gate, you could tell something's up with Angela because she doesn't speak and she's very kind of extremely introverted and shy. So all of a sudden there is a murder. This the head cook of the camp has he's not murdered. There's a terrible accident where he's basically scalded all over his body with this really hot water, and then the camp director, this guy Mel, wants to try to cover it up. And then there's a series of other incidents where people are actually dying. People are getting whacked left and right. They're trying to figure out what's going on, who's being killed, and by the end, it culminates in absolute bonkers chaos that once you see this movie, you will not forget the ending. So,
Yes, we do have to say there's no way to talk about it without spoiling it. I mean, the ending is what this movie's most famous for. And
yes,
one thing that surprised me about this movie, but I feel like we've noticed this earlier in Slashback. We watched some other slasher movies like around Christmas time, and I had never noticed that it's a theme of a lot of these slasher movies. They're like murder mysteries where discovering the identity of the slasher is a big part of the plot. I never realized, I think because with the later Friday the 13th movies and Halloween, there's no mystery who the murderer is. Everyone knows. You watching it know, the people in the movie know. But then in early slashers, it's like a big reveal. It's like a murder mystery. A lot of them have that. And so this does too, where you assume that the murderer is actually a male. Quite tell if it's an adult or a kid. But you do see the hand of the murderer multiple times in close up. And that is definitely a male hand. And in fact, they had a male actor. They used his hand, I guess. And that's to throw you off because who's the actual murderer, Ryan?
da da da. It's Angela. Although, yeah,
Mhm.
it was Ricky. The cousins they had him stand in as the killer. So as you watch the film, you are seeing male hands, and the way they shoot it, it's you see these kind of disembodied hands doing whatever the creative kill is. Then they kind of cut away, and then they reveal the kind of carnage afterwards, which was kind
Right.
of maybe that was a common thing during that time period, but I thought it was pretty effective in this movie, actually. Like there was shout out to the special effects guy running the show in this one because
Yeah.
creative kills and then also just some pretty good practical effects in this one.
And one thing about this movie I think that makes this more disturbing is they didn't go the classic 80s, "We're going to hire a bunch of 20-year-olds to play 14-year-olds." These kids are kids. The kids in this movie could not
Right.
see this movie legally in 1983, so that makes it more disturbing. You wanna get into the first kill?
Yeah, let's get into it. We try to maintain our wall of silence between viewing and then recording, but we did text each other around kind of the 11-minute mark. Some of the dialogue, it is it is shocking.
I read an interview with the director. He said he really wanted the kills to be justified so that when Angela kills each person, they're a bad person, and her reason for killing them is, like, explained in the movie. So, I think the first kill is the chef, right?
Right. Yeah, he dies. Basically gets burned by the largest pot of water I've ever seen in my life. Like, as soon as I saw it on the stove, I was like, "Wow, this is not good. Somebody's getting hurt."
He is cooking a pot that is, like, human-sized. But we're jumping ahead to the murder. First, the movie has to set up why he's killed, and the reason he's killed is he is a pedophile. In act 1 of the movie, I mean, you explained the prologue, that part about in the very beginning with the father and his 2 kids on a boat, that happened, like, a few years earlier, and then the movie jumps ahead a couple years, and then it's all these kids going to camp. So the cook is watching all these young girls and just commenting about basically how he wants to, have his way with them.
The rest of the crews are in there. They're like, "Oh, you're such a joker." They're just like, "My God, what's going on?"
The cook, he gets killed while he is stirring this big hot pot that just has water in it. And then you see the hand, basically, he's up on like a chair. And then the murderer pulls the chair out, and then the hot water falls on him, and then he's just like covered in boils and pus, and he's screaming, but he's like mutilated. And Angela knew that this guy was a pedophile because he like tried to put the moves on her, but she saved at the last minute before he can do anything by is her cousin?
Yeah, it's Ricky.
Yeah, there's like 2 guys who are kind of like semi-main characters. There's her cousin Ricky, who goes to the camp with her, but then there's this other guy that she kinda has the hots for.
Right. He wants to be her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Uh,
What's his name?
I think it's Paul.
Yeah, Christopher Collette, and then,
Yeah.
the actress who plays Angela, Felissa, I think is her name, Felissa Rose?
Yep. Who was 13 when she filmed this, which she's only 3 years older than us. She's like 56.
Wow. We gotta get her on the podcast.
One of the ones that I had beef with was I think it's the next one that goes down, which is this kid Billy, who again another bully. He's in the
Yeah.
bathroom, and there was like that whole bee kill scene where they take a it's obviously a hornet's nest. Apparently, people don't know they're bees back in the 80s. They're like, they're bees. They take a hornet's nest, like shove it through the window, and then like shake it out, and then the bees go crazy and kill him.
Yeah, this kid is killed by a bee's nest. I guess it's a hornet's nest. When they cut to his body, he looks like these are piranha bees. Like his body is chewed on in a way that I thought he must have been allergic because his body reacted poorly.
They were honeybees. Like honeybees don't live in that kind of nest, and they
Yeah.
wouldn't. If a honeybee stings you, it dies. Like so, maybe they couldn't get their hands on some hornets, or they were just too dangerous, or whatever.
Yeah, you're listening to Bee Talk,
Points off for this one.
and we are disappointed. We're giving you 1 sting
One
for
sting.
your bee realism. Very disappointing. Also, did I tell you that, again, this is back to Ye Old House, our favorite subtopic on this podcast. We are doing work in our bathroom, and so we had to tear the walls down to the studs,
Oh
and we
yes.
found a hornet's nest inside the wall, and there were hornets in it. Kim got stung, and so I bought like we didn't want to hire like a professional to come in, so I just bought can after can of hornet spray.
No, no professionals. No.
So I want to point out to you that like the first guy who dies, that horrible cook, I feel like his death was so deserved because he was just an awful human being. But some of these guys are just like practical jokers. The kid who took a girl out into a lake and then he didn't put the moves on her. His whole goal was to just tip the boat so she fell out. But also, he fell out too. It was a shitty practical joke. He gets murdered for that practical joke. It seems like
Yeah.
like the levels of evil are really wide here in this movie.
Yeah. I don't know that Angela's retribution calibration meter was set correctly. Like pedophile check, guy joking around
Right.
that boat. Maybe not. I
Right.
don't know that he even did anything to her. Like, so who knows?
And then after the Hornet guys, she kills a bunch of little kids who were like 10.
Those kids were making fun of her on the dock and threw some sand at her. So, they deserve to die.
Yes, I can understand. Yeah, kids are saying at you, maybe they deserve like itching powder in their jock straps or, Ben Gay or something in their underwear. I don't know if they should all be stabbed to death. Holy shit. I feel like Angela's really taking it a little too far.
Seriously. Well, and
God.
they came back in that scene and I think they were trying to like maybe spare us the chopped up small children sleeping bags
Yeah.
look. But there was a moment where I was like, what am I looking at? Like
Right.
it's like feathers are everywhere, and then like, oh, you're like, oh, okay, she just chopped up a bunch of kids
Yes.
sleeping
And
outside
then
at night. Yeah, what's more wholesome than that? The movie does start off with like the slower pacing, and they're telling the story, and it's like, first death, second death, third death, and you're kind of like, okay, this is, these are how these go, where it's you're
Mhm.
kind of sprinkling them through. We talked about this, like there's probably a pacing for the proper number of kills, but as you
Right.
get about 3/4 way in the movie, all of a sudden it's just like people are being killed everywhere at the same time. It's like this guy's like sprinting from one side of the camp, or Angela,
Yes.
sprinting from one side of the camp to the other, just slaughtering everyone.
Yes. Also, there's a guy who plays the head of the camp.
Camp director Mel, yeah,
And Mel is absolutely confident that I guess is it Paul? He thinks one of the boys is the killer.
Ricky,
Is it
yeah,
Paul? Oh,
the
the
cousin,
Ricky, the cousin?
yeah.
And so he's upset. Mel makes two interesting choices. One, he doesn't want to alert the authorities about these children being murdered because it'll be bad for business.
It would be. So I can understand where he's coming from.
Might as well pack everything and shut down. Nobody's ever going to send their kids here again.
But then Mel goes crazy on Ricky and just throws him to the ground and just starts punching him repeatedly in the face. A kid he thinks has murdered like 7 people at this camp. He doesn't want to have the kid arrested or call the police. He's just going to beat this kid up. That is, Ryan, we've talked about this before. That is parenting logic from the 70s and 80s, where just you could just slap sense into a kid by just open hand across the face.
I got you now, you little monster. Now it's my turn.
Fuck off of me! Leave me alone!
Like you left Penny your Billy, just like you left Meg.
There was another scene in this movie where the head counselor is giving everybody their assignments for the night, and the one counselor, Meg.
All right, ladies, let's hurry it up and unpack so we can get these trunks the hell out of here. By the way, for those of you who don't know, the name is Meg. M-E-G.
Decides that she is gonna then hit up this guy Mel, who, okay, he is an older gentleman. Who are we to cast judgment? We're in our 50s. He's got to be like 60, late 60s, I would guess.
Yeah, so he's super old, not like us.
Super old. And then she like comes up to him and is like, "Hey, Mel, how about that dinner that you talked to me about before? Like, what the hell is going on here?"
Is she a counselor or
She's a counselor.
in the camp? Okay,
She's
so
a
this is a
counselor.
counselor who looks like she's 16 years old.
Right. And then is asking the 6-year-old to have dinner with her.
And Mel responds to it like, okay.
And he's like, great. But then, so anyway, when Meg gets killed, it really upsets Mel because he was going to go on this hot date with.
M-E-G.
Meanwhile, so Judy is supposed to be like the sexually aggressive one because she starts hitting on Paul, right? Paul
Right.
is the one that Angela likes and Paul likes Angela, but Paul tries to put the moves on Angela and Angela stops him. So then Paul goes over to Judy and they have this like little tryst in the woods that Angela comes across. So then Angela is now pissed off at Paul. It's quite a soap opera of plot machinations.
It is. I would say more than many other films we've watched with the kids anyway, that it was like legit this is how teenagers talk to each other in terms of talking shit and just like
Yes.
Lord of the Flies and just kind of being generally assholes.
Yo, Angela, how come you're so fucked up? I mean, like, what's your problem?
Hey, dick face, leave her alone.
Oh, yeah? What are you gonna do about it, asshole?
Boy, I think back to middle school and some of the shit that went on. Yeah, that seems pretty accurate. Kids are
Right.
jerks, and maybe if you had a traumatic upbringing, you would have chopped them up into little pieces at camp during the summer. Who knows? Who knows?
Right.
Who are we to say?
This is also the era of Wet Hot American Summer came out in 81, and Meatballs came out in 79. There was a bunch of camp comedies and a bunch of camp horror movies that all come out in late 70s, early 80s. And Sleepaway Camp, this movie has a little bit of both because there's this, I thought, like somewhat lengthy subplot of boys who are harassing this one kid named Mozart. 3 different times in the movie, they just find different ways to trick Mozart into doing something embarrassing. Like Mozart is sleeping, and so they fill his hand with shaving cream, and then they dangle a dirty sock above his face that feels like a bug on you. So Mozart slaps his face and then gets shaving cream on his face. Now, Ryan, my question about that scene is, Mozart wakes up from a dead sleep. He's got shaving cream all over his face.
Then he grabs apparently he's packed with his Sleepaway Camp essentials, a 6-inch knife. He pulls out.
It's like a hunting knife, a knife you could gut a human with. And he could be the murderer of this movie right from that scene. And Mozart says, I'll get you, I'll get you. And then one of the counselors comes in, grabs the knife, and just sticks it in his bag. And is that the same knife that then Angela uses? Or is it a different, like, how does she come upon a knife?
Good question. I don't know.
There's no connection made in the movie, but
No.
so Judy is taking a shower, and Judy, again, just to remind listeners, Judy's the one that was kind of putting the moves on Paul.
It's not Judy that gets killed in the shower. It's Meg. Yeah. So she's in the shower, showering off, and then Angela comes around from the backside, and apparently this knife and Angela are so strong they can stab through sheetrock, and I'm sure there were some studs in that wall. And then you gotta have the shower liner. Like, it's no problem. It's just like butter. They're like, she goes through all of that material, stabs her in the back, and then proceed. It isn't just a stabbing; it's a kind of stab, and then kind of like you're filleting a fish.
But why doesn't Meg move? Like, she's being stabbed. She could get out of the shower.
No, that knife is 20 miles long, and it's like
The way they filmed it, like Meg threw herself up against the back of the bathroom wall and just got glued there so that she could be stabbed. Okay, so that's how Meg dies. Does Judy even get killed then? 'Cause
yeah,
Judy's a
she's
horrible person.
she's the one that is then making out with the other boy. I forget which one on the bunk, and then
Yeah.
the boy leaves because Mel comes in looking for Meg. Whatever, none of these details matter. Essentially, she's in the room alone, and then Angela comes in, and then Angela proceeds to smother her with a pillow while she takes her out with a hot curling iron.
You're just saying take her out with a hot curling iron as if
We
that's
don't need
what's
to
happening.
talk about this part.
I had no idea that that's what was happening in this scene. I had to read about it online.
Yes, see, I just thought she was just getting stabbed with a curling iron, but
But then
allude to a lot more. Yeah.
she's using the curling iron. She's like sticking up the curling iron up into her. Okay, so that's how Judy dies. So this is usually where you and I get to favorite scenes, but I feel like in this movie there is only one scene that can be the favorite scene.
Yep. Let's break it down because it's been a while since I got to the final scene or the climax of a film and been like, holy shit.
This movie definitely has like a twist ending. Watching it 42 years later still makes you go, "Oh my god."
Like everything hinges on this final scene and the way he filmed it. So
Yes.
please describe for the listeners.
Paul has several times now tried to apologize to Angela. Angela says she's going to like make it up to him. And so they go out onto the beach, presumably for like a makeout scene. And then the other counselors who are left alive come upon the scene of Angela and Paul. And the first thing you see is that Paul's head has been cleanly cut off. It just rolls away. And then the counselors are like, "Oh my God." And then Angela is standing there completely naked. And Angela has a penis. And you were led to believe from the very beginning of the movie that Angela was the last survivor. This little girl was the last survivor of this terrible boat accident where her father and her brother died. But in fact, the person that actually survived was the little boy. And then she was raised by her crazy aunt as a girl named Angela. So Angela is actually the boy who is trans, I guess. The movie showing Angela completely nude, and you're really just looking at like a young man's body with like an Angela mask on, right? I think they just hired a young guy
Right.
to play Angela for that last scene. So, because the actual actress that played Angela is a girl. So you don't see her, you see this naked young man. And it's just supposed to be shocking that Angela has a penis. And that's why the hands look masculine. And when you saw the murderer doing it, and that ending, it is so weird and bizarre. And I'm not really sure it has a whole lot to do with the plot other than here's a twist you didn't see coming. It's like the end of the Crying Game.
And the way they filmed it, it's kind of insane because it's very dark. You're trying to figure out what you're seeing, and then the head rolls away, and then once they cut to the camper, it's like, oh my god, they cut back. It's her with this like almost like feral expression on her face, wild eyes, and grunting or making these animal noises,
Yeah.
and like holding this bloody knife, like she's like gone totally bonkers. And it's not like then they cut to a different scene. It's like you said, they just hold on this face and this body
Yeah.
for a while, and they close out the film. Very jarring, and just like
Yes.
did not see it coming. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, holy smokes.
It's wild, yeah, and it still it manages to shock, which in and of itself is pretty impressive. Like, it manages to actually have a twist that you can't see coming. So much of the rest of this movie, if you've seen these slasher movies, when the horrible cook starts talking about liking young girls, you know he's gonna die. He dies like 10 minutes later,
Right.
right? It's like the movie telegraphs so much of the murders, but this comes out of nowhere.
In reading a little bit about it too, there's also other takes where it's not like she made the choice in terms of
Right.
switching genders. She was forced into it by the aunt. So it's like almost this like violence around her being forced to be a different gender, raised differently, even though she's actually a dude. And then there's some of that like fed into the film, and there very early in the scenes where Angela is like sitting on that bed when she first gets there, and she's like looking at Judy, and it's sort of like, is she
Mhm.
staring at her because she's as a boy attracted to her? Like, and
Right.
then she's getting affection from Paul, that the guy that's kind of courting her. So it's like, who knows what's actually going on? But clearly, like, there's been a lot of stuff fed into her life from her aunt raising her that way.
The aunt is like the real monster of this movie.
I mean, we already have a boy, so another one simply would not do. Oh, no, absolutely not. A little girl would be so much nicer, don't you think so, Angela? Angela. Such a lovely name.
Because you're right. That's a really good point, that the fact that Angela was born a boy and then is like trying to pass as a girl is not the choice of the person. It's something that was forced upon them by a psychotic aunt. And the aunt explains, like at the end of the movie, well, we already have a boy, so we needed a girl, so we'll name you Angela. And then when knowing the ending scene, you're like you pointed out, you could watch the whole movie again and see it slightly differently. It is bizarre. What a crazy movie. Hey, slashers. Before we get to our stabby scores, we have a killer recommendation for your podcast playlist.
Our new favorite podcast is Weirder After Dark, where Sean, Kathy, and Chris dig into the creepy tales of ghosts, cryptids, and witches all across New England.
It's kind of like if the X-Files and Unsolved Mystery had a baby, and that baby got possessed by a demon, and then that demon haunted a Dunkin' Donuts.
Check out the podcast they did about Stone's Public House in Ashland, Massachusetts, a place you can actually visit, grab a meal, and check out the ghost stories for yourself.
The hosts are funny. They do their research. I like that they can tell a good story, but they also have a healthy skepticism about all this stuff, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, me too. So grab a flashlight and head on over to Weirder After Dark.
And tell them Slashback Cinema sent you. What do you got stabby-wise?
When it started out with the acting and just kind of how the movie got going, I had pretty low expectations, but as it progressed, it was kind of enjoying watching it all unfold between the creative kills and the kind of like whodunit aspect. And boy, by the time you get to the end with the surprise ending, it's been a while since a movie had that impact on me. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
We were talking about there's a ton of these slasher films. This one definitely stands out. So I'm I'm going to bring this one in at 3.5 stabs. How about you?
I'm going to do 3.5 also. You persuaded me with your argument that it is slightly better than the average slasher movie. It has a little bit of a twist. The acting is horrible, but I actually think of that as a plus.
That kind of works. Yeah.
I do enjoy these like kind of campy, over the top movies where the acting is bad, where the kills don't quite make any sense. Part of the inspiration for this podcast was you and I complaining about horror movies today that are just so gruesome and disgusting. They just turn your stomach and you're like, the movie is just enjoying torture too much. These movies don't really have that quality. They're a little too silly. And so maybe it's because of what they could show in the 80s. You know, they just didn't have the technology for it. Or maybe it's audience expectation. But yeah, I'm giving it 3.5 as well. That wraps up another trip down memory lane. Hopefully you enjoyed revisiting Sleepaway Camp as much as we did.
Don't forget to follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and subscribe however you listen to your podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you do love the show, leave us a review. It helps other people find out about the podcast.
And we want to hear from you. If you've got a favorite memory from the 70s or 80s or a classic horror movie you'd like us to dissect, drop us a line at slashbackcinema.com. Your suggestions keep the conversation alive.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next week. Eat shit and die, Ricky.
Eat shit and live.